There are people who say that life is awesome and that we should glorify it. And there are people who say that life sucks and that it would be better to never have been. And what I'm saying is that life is both awesome and full of shit. There are people who love life and there are people who hate life. And I'm saying that I both love and hate life. There are people who say that life is infinite, and there are people who say that life is absolutely nothing. And what I'm saying is that life is both infinite and absolutely nothing. There are people who say that life is meaningful, and there are people who say that life is meaningless. And of course, what I say is that life is both meaningful and meaningless. It occurs to me that pretty much all human beings choose to believe in one particular way of life. Everybody chooses to believe whether something is right or wrong, but never both. Whether something is good or bad, but never both. Whether something is beautiful or disgusting, but never both. Whether something is smart or stupid, but never both. Whether something is real or unreal, but never both. Notice that life is inherently dualistic. We can only experience beauty when we experience something disgusting and ugly. We can only experience joy when we experience suffering. In this way, the value of the experience is determined because of the contrast. Now, these contrasts are experienced one at a time, and they alternate each other all the time. One moment, you're hungry, and then you start eating your favorite meal, and you experience a huge satisfaction. But if you continue to eat and eat so much to the point you're about to throw up, your favorite meal suddenly becomes a negative experience. Now, isn't that interesting? Your favorite meal has the potential to be a good experience and a bad experience. Here are some other examples. You can enjoy silence and loneliness for a while, but after a very long period of silence and loneliness, it will make you depressed. What about love? Can two persons love each other to the maximum all the time, 24/7, forever? Of course not. That has never happened before in the history of love. There will be periods in which the intensity of love will decline. So basically, any experience will fluctuate from a state of scarcity into a state of abundance, and it has the potential to be a good experience as well as a bad experience. Hitler was an evil guy, but believe it or not, he also was a good person in some ways. I myself have the potential to be a good and a bad person. That depends on how people interpret and judge me. In fact, I will inevitably be an asshole for some people who can't stand me, because it's just impossible for anyone to be liked and respected by everyone else in the world. So there will always be a duality for everything possible. There will be people who will agree with me with what I'm saying here, and there will be people who will disagree with me. If you agree with me, then you resonate with me, and you sort of unify with me. We become one thing, if you will, so that I can't perceive your opinion anymore, because your opinion is exactly my opinion, without contrast. So you actually become invisible for me if you agree with me, because you become me. But if you disagree with me, you will surely have a contrasting opinion, and you will become clearly visible to me, because there is no resonance at all or not much. So a duality will emerge. Without a duality, so without disagreement, you become invisible, and that's called non-duality. And I will talk about that later. Okay, so What I'm saying is that you can pick anything in existence and it will have the potential to be good and bad, to be beautiful and disgusting, to be loving and hating, to be real and unreal, to be right and wrong, to be dark and bright, to be big and small, to be light and heavy, to be hot and cold, to be young and old, to be gentle and aggressive, to be respectful and disrespectful, to be smart and stupid, to be practical and impractical, to be logical and illogical, and whatever other duality you can come up with. The only thing that is required to become all of those potential states is a whole bunch of time and the right circumstances for it to become actualized. We are living in a universe in which everything inside it is constantly changing. Everything is always shifting into another potential state of being. All the properties of all the phenomena and the objects in the universe are always changing. No matter how small the changes are, it is always changing for a fact. It has to change because everything is being influenced by its environment all the time. So all the properties are always fluctuating. Some fluctuate very little and others a lot. Also, acknowledge the first law of thermodynamics that states that energy cannot be created out of nothing and that it can be destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. Hold that in mind for the next thing I'm about to say. Basically, everything within existence can be compressed into its foundational constituents if they enter a black hole, for example, where all matter is compressed to an almost infinitely small size so that matter is forced to undo itself from its molecular size, from its atomic size, from its subatomic size, and all the way down to the very fundamental level as potential quantum energy fields. It's this basic potential field that is absolutely unbreakable, that can't be destroyed nor created. It's a field that always was and always will be. And everything that is born out of that field will start to revolve around that field, so that one day it will return and merge with that field again. Realize that this field is infinite and that it never was created, because it has always been there. Also realize that therefore everything that exists right now has always existed and that it never was created. The only thing that is really going on is an infinite process of transformation of this fundamental and potential quantum energy field that can be created nor destroyed. When we are talking about creation, we are talking about a temporary form of transformation. Right now, my body is a temporary form, a temporary manifestation of blood, muscles, cells, bones, and nerves. My blood is a temporary manifestation of my blood cells. My blood cells are temporary manifestations of my DNA. My DNA is a temporary manifestation of my molecules. My molecules are temporary manifestations of my atoms. My atoms are temporary manifestations of subatomic particles. And ultimately, my body is a temporary manifestation of the infinite potential quantum field. The temporary manifestation is so extremely temporary that it only lasts for an infinitesimally small period of time, because each millisecond everything in the universe is changing. Each nanosecond everything is changing, and so on. Therefore, each point in time is absolutely unique and a once-in-a-lifetime phenomena. So again, everything that exists right now the way it does is transforming all the time, and it has been transforming non-stop already. When I die, and my dead body will be buried without a coffin, for example, then my body will be consumed very fast underneath the soil. So realize that all the matter that made up my muscles, that made up my brain, my kidneys, my skin, my lungs, my tissues, and so on, will become a part of another system. For example, Some parts of my flesh will be consumed by microorganisms. Or maybe some carnivore will dig me out of the soil and consume me so that some parts of my muscles now become a part of the carnivore's energy system and digestive system. Some parts of me will be turned into shit that will come out of the carnivore's ass. And that ball of shit will sink into the soil and be consumed by other microorganisms. And so now, the part that once belonged to my muscles is now completely differentiated all over the place. So every piece that makes up my body will eventually be completely differentiated in nature and reused for other purposes. Also realize that everything that exists on planet Earth will be completely destroyed because of the fact that our sun will go supernova. Everything will be destroyed. That doesn't mean that everything will be wiped out of existence. No, that means that everything will be transformed into higher forms of energy and other forms of manifestations. But it will be totally chaotic and unrecognizable. So all the atoms that once made up trees, animals, buildings, cars, plants, mountains, people, books, and so on, will still continue to exist, but in totally other forms of manifestations. Those atoms will maybe reconnect themselves in another solar system and become part of a totally new biosphere, and so on. Do you see where I'm getting at? What I'm trying to point out is that the very basic and infinite potential energy field, out of which all the temporary manifestations are born, has the capacity to become potentially everything when given an infinite amount of time. One atom will once be a part of a tree, then part of the atmosphere, then part of a cloud, then part of the ocean, then part of the soil, then part of the sun, part of another galaxy, etc. When given enough time, it will become part of everything. The universe will recycle everything and will turn it into everything, such that everything will once become everything else at a particular point in time. That is how everything is being refreshed all the time. Atoms decay and are pushed out of a system, and new atoms enter that system. Newborns are being replaced with the ones who died. New food is consumed and old food is digested and extruded. So new stuff that already existed is entering a system, and old stuff gets extruded and is used for other systems. Everything has the potential to become everything else when broken down to the fundamental unbreakable energy field and rearranged from that level. And so that is why everything can be potentially good, bad, beautiful, disgusting, likable, dislikable, big, small, dark, bright, soft, rough, hot, cold, fluid, solid, fair, unfair, enjoyable, agonizing, smart, stupid, full, empty, loving, hating, comprehensible, incomprehensible, justifiable, unjustifiable, comfortable, uncomfortable, problematic, unproblematic, soothing, stressing, discriminatory, equal, unequal, believable, unbelievable, shocking, normal, abnormal, living, dead, interpretable, uninterpretable, real, and hallucinatory. Every possible feature, such as those I have just listed, of everything in existence revolves around the unbreakable potential energy field that is the fabric of reality. It does that forever. And everything in existence will flow towards any of those potential features and will become actualized as a temporary, experienceable phenomenon. Realize that nothing has ever ceased to exist. The very fabric of reality has always existed and will always exist forever. The only problem is that we are too focused on these temporary forms. Of course, the temporariness will cease to exist. Of course, you will miss those temporary forms. You will cling to it because that's the only thing you can focus on temporariness. But behind the temporariness lies the infinite, unbreakable source. And that's the thing that we can't focus on because it is unperceivable. The fabric of reality is unperceivable. It is unperceivable because it's pure potentiality. Nothing is actualized on that level. Once something is actualized, it will be a temporary phenomenon, and that phenomenon will be attracted towards the field of pure potentiality, because the only thing a phenomena wants is to be no phenomena at all. That is why everything in the universe is moving the way it does. It all seeks for stability. Only there is one strange, ironic feature of stability. Once everything in existence becomes absolutely stabilized, then the whole of existence will actually cease to exist and become absolutely nothing. But the problem is that nothingness itself doesn't exist, because that is what nothingness is, the absence of existence. So it is impossible for existence to become non-existing. That's why existence is infinite. It never came into being, because it has always been there. So in fact, there are only temporary manifestations and nothing else. Simply because the fabric of reality, which is non-temporary, is objectively unperceivable and therefore does not actually exist. Not even God can perceive it. Nobody ever within an infinite sea of time will ever be capable of perceiving the fabric of reality. Nevertheless, everything within existence is chasing the fabric of reality. Therefore, the true nature of everything is somehow absolutely nothing. Within nothing, you come to rest. There will be no need to chase anything anymore. You have arrived. And that's the point of life. If you exist and you're able to think about existence, then you will come to the conclusion that there will be an infinite amount of temporary phenomena that will literally revolve around the point of absolute nothingness, of absolute peace. An infinite amount of temporary phenomena with all its facets, such as good, bad, big, small, hot, cold, beautiful, disgusting, hairy, bald, healthy, sick, black, white, and so on. And if you die, then you arrive at the point of nothingness, which itself will become pointless, because nothingness itself doesn't exist. So within death, or absolute nothingness, there is no death or nothingness, but also no life or everythingness. And that's called non-duality. When there is no life or death, no existence or non-existence, no good or bad, no reality or hallucination, no happiness or depression, no love or hate, no scarcity or abundance, no fiction or non-fiction. And that's the true purpose of everything, to become non-dual, to become infinite, non-temporary, unperceivable, empty. The purpose is neither a purpose nor purposelessness. And so we are dealing with a paradox here. Everything is chasing nothing, but that's impossible. So everything will just continue to transform for infinity. And so the fabric of reality will remain unknown forever, unless you die, or unless you find a way to become non-dual within life. And lastly, I just want to mention that I no longer identify myself as this temporary human being. Rather, I identify myself as this non-dual core with infinite potentiality. And of course, some of you will say that I'm full of shit, and that I just am a temporary average human being that will die one day, and that's going to be the end of the story. Well, exactly. If there's nothing else beyond this life, then there will be nothing. And nothingness is non-dualistic, and that's precisely the point. You either become nothing, and if that's impossible, you will become infinitely everything, so that there's no way to describe you in terms of a temporary phenomena. If you can become infinitely everything, then you are essentially formless, since you can shift into any form possible. Therefore, you are truly formless, and therefore you are nothing. Absolute infinity is equal to absolute nothingness.